Jonathan Edwards, all the way from Canada, eh?
Hey,
Welcome to Sales Podcast, man. How the heck are you?
I'm awesome, Wes. Thanks for the invite. I'm excited to do this.
So, Olympian author, professional speaker, high performance coach. Come on, man. Does sports have anything to do with being an entrepreneur, with succeeding in sales? Is there any overlap at all? Should we even be talking?
No, let's just stop it now. Like, let's just,
All right.
you know,
Delete. Thanks, everybody, for coming.
thanks for, I'll be honest, when you're an Olympian, you get chances to speak, right? People see the Olympics every 4 years on TV. They get all excited about it. They think, aren't you, isn't this amazing? It must be awesome. And then, so, I got into speaking while I was an athlete but I always felt a little disconnected because here I was talking about like traveling down a sheet of ice at 80 miles an hour dressed in Lululemon. And that was somehow supposed to like relate to what it was you were doing or whoever I was in front of, right?
Wait a minute. You wore Lululemon? We are
Well,
canceling this interview. I need to do better research on my guest. Good grief. That's awesome.
I changed. I used to say dressed in spandex, but now nobody knows what the hell spandex is. So, but one of the things I got really kind of annoyed with was like, I wanted to find a message that really resonated to somebody going through whatever, whether it was sales or if it was kids in high school. And I got really fascinated by just kind of the idea of overcoming a challenge. Like basically what is the Olympics? The Olympics is all about people who choose to take on a certain challenge and then do it at a really high level. And we just get really amazed. But the lessons of it are the same. And, I've been in sales. I've worked for I worked for a big high school fundraising company years ago. I've gone through all the sales profiling and all the role playing and really it all just comes down to the same set of skills. Regardless of if you're in sales or you're going through cancer, like it's all the same stuff.
Mhm.
And so that was kind of the message that I started to adopt, because sharing my story about, just flying down some Austrian Alp on a sheet of ice just seemed a little distant at times.
Yeah. How do you keep your focus when something is so far off? I mean, 4 years. I mean, that's an eternity,
You know what?
right?
It's an eternity if your environment doesn't support it.
Okay.
So like, when we work from home, right? You and I work from home, and in everyday life, like, and 4 years does seem a long time. It's your kids going to school from their freshman year to their senior year. But when you are totally immersed in the environment of the Olympics, it's all you talk about. Like every day you think about it, right? So environment is something that either supports you or it distracts you. And being in that Olympic environment where you're in the Olympic Training Center, there's Olympians walking around every day, you eat, breathe, and sleep whatever that goal is. And it's going to come in 4 years, whether you're ready or not. So you feel like you got to get started now and you got to maximize today now. But when we're in kind of the everyday entrepreneurial world, and yeah, sure, we can set a goal for 4 years out, but man, it seems like it's so far away. It's hard to adopt it, and it's hard to just kind of wrap your head around it. So that's where we're like, I don't need to make, I don't need to make my hours of calls today. I can wait till tomorrow, right? And then it's like a year's worth of tomorrows, and you're still not where you want to be, right? So it all really comes down to the environment that you set for yourself daily. And worst case scenario, Wes, is like if the people around you are negative to that goal, right? Like, let's say, you want to be the top sales producer in your company next year. And, and you share that with the people in your house, and they're like, you didn't do it last year. What makes you think you're going to do it this year? Right. And you're just immediately met with that resistance. Well, that's just going to suck you out of it too. Right. So we got to be really mindful of what kind of an environment we set for ourselves daily.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because I was going to ask. I mean, I've worked in negative environments. I mean,
Mm.
cutthroat, boiler room, um, guys poaching each other's deals, sales managers that were more, Attila the Hun. Um, you know, what do you do in that case? I mean, you need the money, right? You got to pay the mortgage. Kids need Huggies.
Yep.
How do you just have to set a bigger goal beyond that? Just, okay, eventually I'm going to get out of this place. And and find somewhere more conducive to my goals?
Well, so one of the things that I wrote about in my first book was this idea of understanding your own personality, right? So for those of us, anybody that's been in sales for a while, you've probably done some sort of personality profile or sales profile. And basically what they're trying to do is they're trying to put you in a little box, right? They took their best guys and said, these are their boxes. We want to see if you're going to fit close
Nobody
enough.
puts baby in a corner.
Right, but they can paint you in a pretty good color, right? And so what ends up happening is, like, in some of those environments, right, if your personality suits that environment, it's not a problem. But one of the things that happens in the athletic world is, like, so let's say I go out this week and I travel to Germany, right? And I'm going to go compete on a track this week in Germany. Well, let's say it's a technical track, but my personality is suited to something that's more like an open highway. Well, I'm either going to leave and give up on it, or I'm going to say to myself, I need to adopt a personality that's going to succeed in this environment, right? And that's what we see with sports is athletes go from venue to venue to venue to really adapt themselves to win there. So, like what you said there, sometimes people just give up on it, and we can do that. You can leave a company where it's toxic. Like I did that, and I've been booted out of a company where I tested really well on the profile, but then once I got in there, there's that joke about you lied about this job and I lied to get this job, so we're even, right? Eventually people find out and you're just not a good fit. And so at that point in time, you have a choice. You're either going to learn the skills you need to succeed in that environment, because like if a guy's poaching your deals, what can you do to protect your deals? Or do you go on the offensive of what can you do to poach his deals, right? If you're going to play that game. But that gets really tiring, right? That gets really tiring. And that ends up becoming a recipe of the managers. Like, what are they promoting internally? Is it working? Because maybe it's working for them, right? We've all seen Wolf of Wall Street, right? And that worked for those guys. But, I think, we joke about millennials, but I hate painting a group of people like that. I was Generation X, so I don't like getting painted. But the idea now is like, oh, everybody's a little bit softer, need a little bit more love, a little bit more coddling. Well, hey, that's cool too. So it's the matter of is like, do you want to play that game, or are you going to leave to play the game somewhere else? Or ultimately, do you need to adopt your personality to survive in whatever environment you're in? And I teach people to do the latter.
Right. Yeah, I mean, using sports, right? It's we got the Masters coming up, and I mean, some people would be happy to just win any major, right? But they're different. Winning the British Open you need different skills than to win the U.S. Open, right? Totally different setup, totally different environment. Do we sell ourselves short? I mean, should we say, hey, I just want to win a tournament on the PGA, or, I want to win any major, or, I want to win the Grand Slam. I want to win all 4 majors. My life will not be complete unless I win all 4. I mean, in the big scheme of things, just getting your PGA Tour card is, 0.000001% of the world is good enough to do that, So how do we know if our goals are too big?
It's all personal. It all comes down to you. Because like what you just said there about kind of your views of winning, right? Of winning on the PGA Tour. So one of my favorite sayings is like, what people say about you or what you do says more about them than it does about you. Right now, all of us who play golf and hack around the course and love the game and do the best we can, we marvel at guys who are even there, right? And that's natural. I always feel somewhat a little bit sorry for the guys that go, like, oh, I've won every major except this one, and you just hear in their voice like, oh, this is tragedy. I think those guys, when they're older, they'll realize what a great accomplishment that was. But goals got us, we can set goals, and in sales, we're all about goals, and then we back it up, and it's all about, the number of calls you're going to make, the number of people you're in front of, right? The number of your closing rate, your timelines, all that stuff, right? And I always say that there's no unrealistic goal. There's just unrealistic habits to reach that goal. So, like, if you want to win on the PGA Tour, yet you can't, you can't hit the range or the green like every day, twice a day, right? Then you're probably not going to reach that goal. Right now, to use a football analogy, like right now, because I'm born and raised in Boston, I'm a bit of a Patriots fan. I know that can be offensive, but let's hear about Julian Edelman. Like, so Julian Edelman comes out of college. He's a quarterback, right? He's a small quarterback. He gets drafted as a wide receiver by the Patriots. And, a lot of people go like, you have no chance. And people said that to him. You've got no chance to do that. And you know what his dad told him? He said, listen, we're 10,000 balls behind. We just got to get to work. So if your goal, like whatever your goal is, whatever falls on you, like whatever you, because I believe like whether it's God or universe or spirit or whatever people want to believe in, if there's an idea in your head, like, oh man, you know what? I want to be the top producer next year, 2 years, 3 years, whatever. That idea has fallen on you for a reason. Nobody else. And I believe that, the world is not full of frustration. Sometimes we can make ourselves feel like that. But that idea fell on you for a reason, so go for it. No one else is out there to tell you. No one else should tell you that it's not a good idea because that's their opinion. But inside you, just go for it. Oh, I lost your mic.
I need to unmute myself.
There you go.
So, yeah, I love that. No unrealistic goals, just unrealistic habits to reach those goals.
Yeah, that's true.
But what if someone is imparting those habits? I mean, when you were an athlete, somebody was telling you what the ideal workout and diet was, right? I mean, you weren't just figuring out on your own.
Well, sure. I mean, we all get mentoring. Whatever you're on, like whatever group you're on, like so, right? When you start with an organization in sales, right, you're usually paired with an older, grizzled veteran, right, typically, right, a sales manager who can sell ice to people in Antarctica, right, like that sort of thing. And so you've got to look for those people. And so one of the things when you set this challenge, like, so let's say, your sales goal, that's your challenge. One of the steps you have to do is one, you've got to accept the challenge, or you got to be up for that. You can't be threatened by it. Like if you feel threatened by this goal that you've set for yourself, then you're not going to want to go ahead, right? You can only beat yourself so much in jiu-jitsu, Wes, right? Like if you're going up somebody who's bigger, faster, stronger, you're going to make a decision at that point. I either accept this challenge or I'm not. And you partner with a coach, right? You partner with that grizzled veteran to tell you, no, Wes, you know what? I think you can do this, and here's how. So what you're doing in that situation is you're upgrading your inputs. Like, so in your head, you have an input, right? You've got a voice talking to you all day, right? You can do this, or you can't do this, or it's throwing out all the fears and all the possibilities. That's an input. So what do? Well, you go out and get other inputs to overwhelm that, to help you with your belief that you can make it happen, right? And so people spend most of their time during the day on social media getting all these inputs from all over the place. Like every day you're full of input. So, that's why we tell people like, hey, you got to start the day off before you even roll out of bed. And you've got to get a vision in your head of what you want to have happen today, not what happened yesterday. We want to start fresh. That's an input. Because if you're just reliving like your past every day, that's an input that's going to overwhelm you. So you've got to have people, and you've got to have information and imagery that reinforces you to help you with those habits to get you to where you want to be.
Yeah. How would you bounce back or dig yourself out of a rut? Because I got to imagine 4 years, you're training, I'm going to guess 6 days a week.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And it's 7 for fun. We'd go mountain biking.
Yeah. So somewhere in there, whatever, maybe you got a cold, maybe you goofed off and went and got drunk, you're hungover,
every Tuesday night,
you miss a day, you miss 2 days, and I mean, it's like how much in a 4-year plan, how much would missing 1 or 2 days set you off the path?
Man, that's a good question.
Because they talk about like hitting a driver, a tee shot. If you're 1 degree off, it's not that big a deal unless you hit it 300 yards. And by the time you go 300 yards, you're like 50 feet off, which means you're in the woods, from that 1 degree. So, that's That's one out of what, 1,400 days roughly.
Yeah.
Um, you know, how tough is it to bounce back, or is one okay, but two or three or four, you start to have some problems?
So I think when you set a goal for yourself, right, or you're trying to overcome something significant, right? Like, we talk about, like, sometimes people need a wake up call to wake up, right? But what happens is a lot of times we never get that. We're just going through the motions day in, day out. We're doing what we're doing. And I think for most people, when you set a goal for yourself, right? Okay, you immediately have to back it up to all the habits to help you reach that goal, right? So let's say your closing ratio is whatever, 50%. Let's do easy math, right? And you know that this year you're going to make $150,000 if you can talk to 500 people, and then you're going to close a certain ratio of that. You got all your numbers. Well, then you back up all your habits, right? So every day you have the chance to be perfect according to what you've planned for yourself, according to what your coach or your manager has helped you kind of plan for yourself. You've got your perfect day. Well, so then the question is, well, like, can you go out and fulfill your perfect day, right? Because if you can't, well, then you're going to either push back that goal or not be ready for that goal. Like I was saying before, like the Olympics comes every 4 years, whether you're ready or not, right? Like it's coming, and then it's going to go past you. So, but most of us don't really have those goals, right? Like I was marvel at when companies set a goal to release a movie, right? Because they're like, okay, we're going to release whatever, the new Marvel movie on this date. My friend, a former teammate of mine, is a marketing director for Disney. And they're like, okay, we're releasing Penguins on this day. And you're like, well, if you worked on that for like another month, it would have been better, right? At some point, you just got to put a line in the sand and say, that's what I'm going to do, and this is how I'm going to do it. And then you back up all the habits, and then you just got to get out and do it, right? It's like if part of your job is cold calling, man, you got to eat it. And I hate cold calling, right? Like most people do. But you just got to do those days. And if you miss your day, you got to go like, all right, why did I miss my day? And then readjust. Because in the long term, Wes, these are little cuts of the tree,
Mm-hmm.
right? And or death by 1,000 cuts sort of thing. And we got to stay on top of it, or else we're going to just delay those goals that we set for ourselves.
A lot of times I tell my sales management clients that you manage activity and pay on results, right? So give your salespeople these habits. What should they be doing every day? And then the results will take care of themselves. If they're calling the right people, saying the right things with the right message, sales are going to happen. So when you're preparing over 4 years, and I don't know anything about the luge, but
not many people do.
Like what's a typical time? Is it like a minute 20 or something? Like what's?
It's about 50 seconds.
50 seconds. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's say you got to be at 50 seconds when the Olympics hit.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe today you're at 54 seconds. So you're like, okay, every year I'm gonna carve a second off. Right. I need to be at 53, 52, 51. Then I'm peaking at the right time.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I mean, do you have goals like that, or is it like this? I can 100% of my effort is X, Monday through Saturday. I'm gonna do 100% of my training effort every single day.
Mm-hmm.
And when it's game time, maybe I'll be at 54 seconds. Maybe I'll be at 48 seconds.
Mm-hmm. I
can't control it. I'm just going to, basically like when you're dieting, don't get on the scale. Just eat the right foods. Don't worry about the weight.
Right. It should take care of itself.
If you feel good or your pants loose, stop getting on the scale and freaking yourself out. So how do you balance that, measuring every little thing insofar as goals, or achievements versus if I'm doing the right things,
right,
I can't worry about anything else because I can't do any more because I'm doing 100% Monday through Saturday.
Right. So when it comes to athletic performance, we have a variable called supercompensation. So we go to train, whether it's training for our sport, like it's sport specific, and this doesn't matter what sport it is. You could be a recreational runner, you could be a jiu-jitsu athlete, you could be doing triathlons, whatever, CrossFit. So so
Are,
we
are you saying there are other sports besides jiu-jitsu?
just a couple,
Is that what
just
you said?
like one or two.
Oh,
And wait, sorry.
golly. All
I
right.
know,
Just
right? Especially
let's go ahead and delete that. Go ahead and start back over.
you're in the Gracie training too, so there's nothing more than well, actually one of my strength and conditioning coaches trained one of the earliest Gracies who went 401 in all of his fights of all time. I can't remember if it was Hickson or Hoyce or they all
Right.
start with J, right? Anyway,
Well, it's spelled with an R, but it's pronounced as an H.
right,
It
which
took
makes
me a
no
long
sense.
time to realize that.
You're like, hello, Royce. No, it's Hoyce. Really?
Yeah.
Welcome to America. Come on, let's talk like us now because this confuses us. um, but so we have this in the physical training world, like of sports, we have this thing called super compensation. So we're training and we're basically beating ourselves down a little bit. We're degrading the body, and then we have to rest and we have to recover. And the idea is that we compensate better than where we were before, right? So you can't go out every day and just beat yourself up every day, every day, every day. There's called periodization. Now, this is something that we don't do in the rest of our life. Like we especially in entrepreneurship and sales, like we just want to hit the road every day. We want to hit, whatever we're doing, we're going to hit it. We're going to hit it. And then we wonder why we burn out and we're tired and we just want to sleep all day. Right. And so we don't take these two components. We don't look at like what we do now as adults in kind of a working career and go like, how am I super compensating? Because really it comes down to this. Like, so you have a physical ability to do what it is you do as an athlete and as a sales pro, right? If you're like overweight, if you're carrying around like 40, 50, 100, 150 pounds, right, every day, that's weighing on you, right? So you got a physical ability to do what it is you do every day. If you got paralyzed tomorrow and you couldn't pick up the phone, like a legit phone, you would have to figure out a way to get a headset, right? But that's a physical ability. You also have a technical ability. And so this comes down to like, all right, when we do role playing in sales, like it's the same thing about like when you're basically visualizing and you're training to compete, you're doing the same thing. You're working on your technical ability to succeed at the thing that you're trying to do, right? And then you also have a third ability, which is your tactical ability. Like, are you calling the right people? Right? Am I, like for those of us that are football fans, when the coach draws up the X's and O's, when your sales manager draws up the X's and O's for your company, for your sales group, like they're saying like tactically, guys, this is where we're going to go. This is who we're going to call. This is where we're going to be. We're going to go to that event. We're going to get this list. We're going to mail those people. That's all tactics, right? So every day you're working on those three things, right? Physical, technical, and tactical ability to really make it happen. Now, here's the thing, Wes, that people that aren't in the world of sport, actually people that are in the world of sport too, you're looking for one thing. We're looking for one thing that's going to fix it all, right? We're looking for a new, an email, whiz bang email or a sales letter or a new list or whatever to just all of a sudden it's going to work. And that's really unfair because the best athletes, what we do is we look across all these different areas where we can improve 1%. Because because we're going to have an exponential growth if we can improve a lot of areas 1%, as opposed to trying to all of a sudden, maximize one aspect of us 1,000%. That can be now. You can hit a home run every once in a while, like we all know that, right? You can close a deal with somebody, and then all of a sudden you get 10 spinoff deals because of that. You get all this referral. That's awesome, right? But you don't plan for that. You're open to the possibility. But if you look to improve like all these little areas a little bit, then you're going to have an exponential increase. And that's what we focus on.
Yeah. So tell me those two again. You said it was super compensation.
Yeah. So in
And what
you're
was
looking
the
for
other?
super compensation is the one main one. It is basically this idea that, all right, listen, you're going to go out today and you're going to beat yourself down. Right. But the idea is you need to take a little recovery to then come back and let your body super compensate. Because when you super compensate, now you're better than you were before.
And the resting is the super compensation, or is it both? Is it pushing to exhaustion and then giving your time to recover?
Yeah, and it's not even you don't even have to go to exhaustion. This is something that people assume about Olympic athletes is that we're really good at just, killing ourselves. Because that's basically what you see when you watch the Olympics or you watch like an Ironman World Championships or you watch a jiu-jitsu fight and guys gets tapped out, right? It's like ultimate failure, right? But really there's also a component that a lot of people don't think it's what a lot of people relate to is like they can all relate to their muscles aching, whether it's they walked up a flight of stairs or they did some squats. But there's also a neurological component where your brain is sending a signal to all your muscles going, this is what you need to do, right? And so you need to rest. You need to tax the body, tax the brain, rest a bit so that the body can recover, the brain can recover, and then you can come back and do it again and hopefully do it better than you did before.
Right. So how many times would you say you climbed on a luge and went down that pipe?
Oh, man.
10,000?
No, the number is actually real. So luge of all the sports is the most is probably one of the most complex and the least accessible. So what happens is we would go to a track for a World Cup, and you would get 5 training runs before you could actually race.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So the cool thing though, Wes, which is neat about it, is that like basically by your 3rd run, you had really kind of maxed out, like, and your 4th run would not always be as good as your 3rd run was, but now you have like a 5th training run, and now you're wondering like, should I even take that? So in the course of an athlete's career, they can take anywhere from 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 runs.
Okay.
Especially in North America, we don't have the opportunity to train as much as like the Germans. Like luge in Germany is like softball is to Americans. People come out on a Friday night, get a bunch of beer, get a sled, put a helmet on, go. Like culturally, yeah, no, it's great. You see all these guys, these old guys in their 60s, 70s, 80s, and they've got these little pot bellies and their little, their speed suits that don't fit anymore. And they pull out this, like their sled that they've had since 1960. And yeah, they'll.
It's like those guys that pull up on a golf cart with beers falling out and cigars and
yeah.
big bellies, and they go, golf is a sport.
Yeah,
We
exactly.
are athletes.
We are athletes. That's right. No, that's totally true.
Okay, so still hundreds, I mean thousands, right? Yeah. Did you still get nervous?
Yeah, and actually the thing that I learned the most, and this is one of the things that the concepts I try to teach people is that, right now the word anxiety has become this buzzword almost to a lot of people. It's almost become a badge of honor for some people, like, oh, I have anxiety. But really anxiety and excitement are the same things biologically in your body. The problem is that your brain kind of signals all those chemicals in your body, to when you don't need them. It's like when you're about to go to bed at night, you got a sales meeting tomorrow and you're going to meet with this, the key decision maker, this big account, and you're having dinner with your kids and what are you doing? You're thinking about it. And so what happens is your body goes, all right, the brain's going, visualizing that whole thing. Right, seeing the guy across the table, right, with his tie up too tight and his cheeks hanging out over his out of his collar and his glasses, and this is the guy. And what are you doing? You're visualizing all that stuff, and your body goes, "Okay, I'm ready." And so you get nervous, and people think that that's really a bad thing. It's not a bad thing at all. It's actually just the timing of it, because what's happening is when you're nervous, is your brain is helping you get ready to perform at a level you've never performed before. Right. So the story I like to tell is like when I made the Olympic team, we arrived in Norway 12 days before my event. And so we took a ferry from northern Germany to Norway, and we show up, we roll in, and we go to the SAS hotel, and the US Olympic Committee has this entire room with all the gear, like your Olympic team coats, your jackets, your dress stuff, your winter, like it was great. And I was nervous then, and nobody taught me this then. You would think that this was the first thing they would teach you at the Olympics, but nobody talked about it at all. 12 days later, by the time my event rolled up, I had nothing. I was like, we had to generate nervousness. because being nervous can actually help you. It's going to help you think quicker. It's going to help you be more open to subtle cues, right? It's actually there. It's your body just helping you out. Now, what people do a lot is they fear that feeling. They don't know what's going on. And then they all of a sudden they can't think well, right? They can't come up with a proper response, right? They get jittery. And that's where, just by understanding what's going on, you can kind of settle that down and perform, because you just know your body's helping you out.
Well, that's why you got to train the way you're going to compete, right? 'Cause
Right,
I heard a
exactly.
story, and I think it was the Olympics. It was some Russian dude. I don't remember the sport, but he won everything, like leading up to the Olympics, and a great trainer. And, they show him in drills, and he was killing it. But then on the big stage, he collapsed because he didn't practice. He practiced in like perfect silence, nobody really watching. Then he's on the big stage and people are everywhere and lights and cameras, and he just froze.
Yeah.
So I remember when I first got into sales, man, we had this old Army drill sergeant. This was 1997. I'm in Memphis. We had a 2-week training to learn how to sell stocks and bonds. Oh, It was brutal. He was just he was the only guy that could smoke in the whole building. And we had to leave the room and go to a little cubby hole conference room and call in to the training room with like 30 other trainees. And he'd put us on speaker, and we had to cold call him, and he'd grill us.
Yeah.
We're like, okay, if we can survive that,
Right.
then we can survive anybody else, some mad dad, cold calling them on a Saturday.
Right.
Which I did get. But a lot of times we don't want to train that hard.
Right.
So we just destined to failure, because you got to be ready.
Yeah.
I remember, God, I was on the LA news station early in January, but I had the talking points were not mine per se. It was like how to shop for a car, right? Because my friend was just trying to get me some press. And so instead of selling, it was on buying and negotiation, which I'm fine with, but it's not my normal stuff. And it was supposed to be at the end of December for the new year, and they got pushed into January. And man, I'm glad I had my iPhone with some notes, and I'm glad they were like super chill because it was a Saturday. But I kind of froze walking out there because I didn't have a chance to practice enough with that. Even though I've spoken many times, you can turn the camera on now on my stuff. Mm-hmm. Let's roll. But like, how long does it take to internalize something so it really is second nature and you don't have to think about it?
Well, this is the same across anything, is that when you know what's coming, right, you've got a better chance of success, right? But when we're new at something, it's why when you start with a new company and they take you through like they take you through the most popular like objections, and then they're going to give you an arsenal of ways to overcome that. And basically what you're doing is you're beefing up your opportunities to respond and react, right? So the best athletes, the best business people have a arsenal of weapons, right? So, but here's the thing, is that when you throw yourself into a situation, like it's so funny, Wes, like this is the same thing I teach like my 15-year-old gymnast client, and the same thing I teach my stay-at-home mom who's overwhelmed by all the stuff she has to do with her kids. You have to know at some point what you're expected to do. And if you're not, you've got to wing it, you got to hope you have enough psychological flexibility. That's the term for this. It's psychological flexibility. And a lot of people go into a situation and they go, this is me, and I'm just going to take it as it is. But what I like people to understand is that you've got to basically create your avatar. Like when we play a video game, we get to pick an avatar, right? If you ask your kids, like, hey, when they go play Fortnite, what's their avatar? It's not them, right? It's some figure. It's some cool, like it's something that they think is cool. And that's what you have to do, is you have to kind of go like, who do I need to become to survive this situation? And what do I know about it? And so the more, like Wes, like if you had gone into that interview and you had spent like a couple extra hours researching who was going to interview you, and if you were if you were like really on top of it, you know, you might go like, well, if that guy's sick that day or that woman's sick, who fills in for them? And then you saw some video of them, and just enough to go like, oh, I know what that guy looks like, I know, or what she looks like, I know what her style is, you know, like that sales trainer guy you had, you know, just being ready, knowing that it's some grizzled vet that's going to just grill me. You came prepared. You're like, this is the new Wes avatar that's got to deal with the grizzled guy. So as athletes, we do this all the time. We're just preparing ourselves for like, how are we going to survive? Because Wes, you only have three choices if you don't do that. One is you gotta back off, right? When we would go to a new track in Europe, we don't jump right to the top of the track, right? We don't go right to the top. We start lower down because it's got to be slow so we can figure it out, right? But if you have enough skill, you can kind of jump right to the top, and you might do it, but you'll probably have an okay run. It won't be great. But here's the thing, Wes, if you were in another situation where you had been like grilled by an interviewer that was 10 times as tough someplace else, and you roll up into that interview in LA and you're like, this is gravy, right? So, but most people try to wing it and then they fail and they go like, oh, this sucks, I'm going to go somewhere else. They're like, no, you just weren't prepared.
Yeah, the reality was I worked with a PR coach and she grilled me for about 8 hours. And it was still, despite all of that, it was still nerve-wracking delivering, because that was the first time I delivered that content live.
Right.
That wasn't mine.
So all you could have done was, so what usually happens, Wes, in that situation, even though you're practicing to do it, is that the intensity of the practice doesn't replicate enough what you're about to experience.
Right.
This is why, I love that scene in one of my favorite movies is Ocean's 11, right? And what do? They make a replica of the vault, an exact replica of the vault in a warehouse. Why? So that when they get in there, everything's tick, tick, tick. They know what's going on. So that's the only way you can do it. And where a lot of people fail, this happens with athletes from practice to competition. This happens with salespeople from role play to actually getting the deal done, is that it's different. You know, you can role play all you want in your kitchen, but then when you're face to face with the prospect in their kitchen, right? You got to be psychologically flexible to deal with that, right? Because if what happens sometimes, the training can make us really rigid to the environment that we practiced in, and then all of a sudden you go out to a different environment and you're like, whoa, what the hell is this? Right. And then it throws you off.
Yep.
So yeah.
Amen. Very nice. Well, man, your books, you've got one out,
Yep.
An Athlete's Guide to Winning in Sports and Life.
Yeah.
For athletes with big dreams and the parents and coaches who support them. And you're coming out with another one, right?
Yeah. I took the concepts, like I realized, so I was working with one of my athletes, and one of the things I do with my athletes, because a lot of my athletes are kind of underage, is I also work with the parents as well. And the parents were like, damn, this is such good stuff. Like, can you help me? And she was actually in sales. And ironically, she was like a mom who was really managing her daughter's life as an athlete, right? And this is a high-end athlete in the US. We'll see her in the Olympics someday. But the mom was like, you know what you're teaching her, I need for what I do. And this is a highly kind of stressed out mom, a lot of limited resources, time, energy, money. And we took her. And so the book was really kind of catalyzed by that situation, because I'm fascinated by what we all know. When we play a game, we know what we're like, there's lessons from that game. And so basically I call it the "you got this" method. So you got this, how to overcome any challenge using the power of sport and games. And because what do we tell people, Wes? Like, when we believe in it, even just a little bit, we say like, you got this, right? You're going to that big sales meeting, like, you got this, right? You got cancer, you're going to go through chemo, you got this. It's a hopeful response. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to add the here's how part of it. So you got this, here's how. And I'm excited to get that done. It should be done hopefully in the next 60 days. That's the plan. My habits are to get that done in the next 60 days.
Nice. Very cool. Well, I will link to your website, link to your Instagram as well. So it's Olympic Jonathan, right, on Instagram?
Yep. And for all the sales guys listening, sales girls as well, if you go to overcomeanychallenge.com/sales dog, I've got a white paper based on kind of the 12 main concepts that are coming out in the book, but geared towards salespeople. So overcomeanychallenge.com/sales dog, because that's the avatar, right? You want to be a sales dog. You want to get this done.
Yo, dog, I feel it. It's
funny,
all good.
I listen to all these sales podcasts, right? And I remember when I was young and we listened to tapes, and all the top sales guys were all from the South. And I'm from New England. My mom was an opera singer. She didn't let me get any Boston accent, but I would find myself with a prospect getting into this like Southern drawl. What's wrong with me, Wes? Like, what's the deal?
Hey, you're emulating greatness. Although your mom's probably a little upset because I did pick up your little about.
Yes. No, my Canadian. Yeah.
Canadian has spilled over.
I get Canadian kids, man. It's toxic.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, Jonathan Edwards, Mr. Olympic. Thanks for coming on the Sales Podcast, man. It's been great.
Thanks for having me, Wes. Appreciate it.